Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. Victorian England, a time of tea, corsets, parasols, and strict social etiquette. You've seen the paintings, you've watched the dramas. You might even think you'd do okay there, just mind your manners, sip the tea, and occasionally faint onto a velvet chaise lounge. But here's the truth. Being a woman in the Victorian era meant living under a microscope, one held by your neighbours, your family, your servants, your priest, your doctor, and occasionally even Queen Victoria herself. Tonight, we're going to peel back the lace curtains and wander slowly, quietly, into the deeply strange and suffocating expectations placed upon women during the 19th century, from what you wore, to how you walked, to what you were allowed to think, feel, eat, read, and dream. Nothing was really yours. Even your body often belonged to someone else. Before we dive in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know in the comments, what time is it where you're watching from? I always find it fascinating to see who's tuning in from across the world, whether it's morning in Melbourne or midnight in Manchester. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum, and let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey, the strange expectations placed on Victorian ladies. Forget everything you know about polite society. Tonight, you'll wake up in a world where smiling too much could ruin your reputation, where reading the wrong novel might be seen as moral collapse, and where your uterus could be blamed for nearly any emotional disturbance. Sound ridiculous? Oh, we're just getting started. Because while the Victorian world marketed itself as refined and morally upright, it also locked women into a life of deeply bizarre, often punishing ideals. Perfection wasn't optional, it was required. And deviation from that perfection? Well, that could mean shame, exclusion, or even institutionalization. You'll walk through parlors that smell like lavender water and anxiety. You'll sit through lectures on how a proper lady holds her fan. You'll eat 3 boiled vegetables for dinner and pretend to be full. And if you dare to think for yourself, you'd better hide it behind a demure smile and perfectly hemmed gloves. This isn't about queens or duchesses or rebellious outliers. This is about ordinary women existing quietly under an invisible weight of rules they didn't write and couldn't escape. We'll experience the world as they did not from a textbook, but from the inside. Slowly, softly, truthfully, so close your eyes if you like. Let the imagined gaslight flicker in the corner of your mind. Let the sound of horse hooves on cobblestone echo through your thoughts, and prepare yourself to enter the day of a woman whose life is choreographed down to the angle of her gaze. Victorian womanhood wasn't just a role, it was a full-time, unpaid, spiritually draining performance. And you tonight are taking center stage. You wake up with a start, heart fluttering like a caged bird. For a moment, you're not sure where you are. The sheets are stiff. The air is cold. There's a faint scent of old lavender, mothballs, and something far less pleasant coal smoke, faint mildew, and the unmistakable trace of boiled cabbage from last night's supper. Your eyes blink open. The room is dim, but not from the absence of light, no. From the heavy velvet curtains drawn shut to block out the sun, and perhaps the judgmental eyes of the neighbours. You are in your bedchamber in Victorian England, and you are very much a lady, or at least you're expected to act like one. You are not comfortable. The mattress beneath you is thin, stuffed with horsehair, and lumpy in ways that feel almost strategic. Your pillow is not much better hard, flattened by years of use, and faintly damp with the chill that never quite leaves the room. The bedsheets are coarse linen, scratchy against your skin. They itch, but you must not scratch. A lady does not scratch. A lady endures. Your nightgown clings slightly to your body. It is modest, high-necked, long-sleeved, and entirely devoid of any softness. The fabric smells of lye soap and starch, and it crunches faintly when you move. The chill of the room has crept into your bones overnight. You are already shivering. There is no central heating, just the dying embers in the fireplace across the room, grey and cold now, having gone out long before dawn. You're not alone, of course. A firemaid likely came in while you were still asleep, silently, invisibly, and opened the flue. She may have stoked the fire before it died, placed your chamber pot discreetly under the bed, and checked that your slippers were neatly aligned on the rug beside you. You didn't hear her. You were not meant to. Victorian ladies are served without ever acknowledging the servant's presence. It would be unseemly to notice. You sit up slowly, carefully. Your head feels heavy. The air in the room is thick with coal soot and that strange dampness that clings to every fabric and surface in London. You cough once, just once. A lady's lungs are expected to be delicate, but not ungraceful. Your first thought isn't about breakfast. It isn't about comfort. It's about presentation. Because any moment now, someone may come in. Perhaps your maid, perhaps your mother, perhaps an aunt. And you must not be found looking slouched or rumpled or, heaven forbid, emotional. You glance toward the window. The curtains are drawn, but a thin line of grey light slips through. It is morning, probably early. Time is measured not by clocks, but by routine. You know you must rise, wash, dress, and prepare yourself for a day of exquisite, exhausting perfection. The chamber pot under the bed beckons. You don't want to think about it, but it's there, and you must use it before your maid enters with the wash basin. It's cold. The porcelain bites against your thighs. It is not dignified, but dignity, you remind yourself, is often just a performance played above the waist. You shuffle across the rug to the fireplace. Your slippers are thin and worn. They offer no warmth. The hearth is empty now. The last bits of charcoal surrendered to the night. You reach for the bell pull, a simple tug to summon your maid. You are not to speak loudly, not to call out. That would be undignified. While you wait, you take in the room. Your room, the wallpaper is floral, but faded. Once elegant, now gently peeling at the corners. A single framed silhouette of your late grandmother hangs on the far wall. Her features unrecognizable in the morning dim. Your dressing table is neat, untouched, since the previous evening. On it, a comb, a hairbrush, a pair of white gloves folded neatly, and a small silver container of tooth powder that tastes like chalk and cloves. The air smells faintly of gas. The room is lit, occasionally, by a gas lamp, but not this early. In the corner sits a large ceramic pitcher and matching basin. Your wash. Cold water, always cold. You can already feel your skin flinching at the thought of it. And then you hear it, the soft knock, the quick shuffle of feet. Your maid enters without a word. She does not look you in the eye. Her cheeks are red from scrubbing some other room. She carries the jug of water, like it's a sacred offering. No smile, no greeting. She sets the pitcher down with care, dips a cloth into the basin, and leaves as quickly as she came. This is not friendship. This is not kindness. This is structure. You are not to thank her. You are not to acknowledge her presence beyond what is necessary. A lady observes hierarchy at all time. You begin to wash. The cloth is coarse. The water is shockingly cold. You wash your face, your neck, your hands. Anything more would be indecent. Your hair is tightly braided from the night before, long, dark, and oily now, but you must not wash it daily. That would be considered vulgar. Hair is cleaned perhaps once a week, with a mixture of vinegar and egg yolk, if you're lucky. Your fingers are pale, already numbing in the cold. You must not rub them. You must not complain. You must persevere, because the day is beginning, and with it, the long list of expectations that await you. Soon, you'll be expected to dress, to choose the correct undergarments, to be laced into your corset tight, but not scandalously so. Your figure must be pleasing, but never provocative. Your shoes must be buttoned. Your gloves must be clean. Your mouth must be quiet. Today may bring visitors, or lessons, or embroidery, or, if you are fortunate, a walk in the garden, where you may pretend to enjoy nature while secretly longing for freedom. But in this moment, as you stand half-washed, cold, and aching in your own room, you begin to feel it, the weight, the invisible corset that stretches beyond your ribcage and into your mind. The quiet knowledge that your life is not truly yours. That every movement, every breath is watched, measured, judged. You sigh very softly. And even that feels like rebellion. The day has only just begun. You've bathed, if you can call it that, a splash of cold water to the face, a stiff cloth across your neck and wrists, and the silent promise to your body that perhaps, if you're lucky, a full bath might come on Saturday. In a tin tub, in front of the fireplace, with reused water, after your mother's had hers, after your sister's, and before it gets dumped out the back door. But now comes the second ritual of the morning. Breakfast. A lady's breakfast, mind you, not a feast, not even sustenance in the modern sense. This is about appearances, restraint, dainty portions and delicate manners. Food is not to be enjoyed, not openly. To eat with pleasure is to expose yourself, and exposure is dangerous. The house is waking. Downstairs, the sounds of coal being shoveled into the stove echo up through the floorboards. A kettle hisses, plates clink. Somewhere, a maid mutters something under her breath. You hear the sharp bark of a scolding. The cook, perhaps, or your mother, or someone navigating the power struggle that is domestic life below stairs. You are called to breakfast not by name, not by alarm, but by expectation. It is time. You must descend. First, your hair must be made presentable. Your maid may return to brush it 100 strokes, perhaps, if you are fortunate, or you will do it yourself, wincing as the bristles catch on knots formed in sleep and sweat. No makeup, of course. That is for actresses and fallen women. Your face must be scrubbed raw and left to glow with nothing but virtue. Your breath is sour from sleep, but there is no toothpaste. Instead, a powdered mixture of crushed charcoal, salt, chalk, or bicarbonate of soda sits in a small tin. You dip your brush, more of a stiff bristle on a wooden handle, and scrape it against your teeth. It tastes like dirt. You rinse with tepid water, spit discreetly into a porcelain basin, and dry your mouth on a cloth no one must see you use. Your mouth must always be clean, but not too clean. White teeth are desirable, but unnaturally white. That's vanity, and vanity is a slippery slope. You slip into a fresh pair of stockings, button your boot, glance once more at yourself in the mirror, making sure you look effortless, which is to say, like you've tried exactly the right amount and not a fraction more. Downstairs now, the dining room is chilly, formal, and aggressively silent. The curtains are half open. The morning light filters in, grey and wet with fog. Outside, the street glistens with last night's rain, the clatter of carriage wheels, the clip-clop of hooves on cobblestone. A thin mist hangs in the air, and you think briefly of how different this moment would feel if you were allowed to eat by the fire. You are not. You sit, posture straight, ankles crossed beneath your chair, hands delicately folded until the tea is poured. Your mother is already seated. Your father may or may not be present. If he is, conversation will be minimal. His newspaper rustles with more authority than any spoken word. The food is restrained. A thin slice of toast. No butter, unless you're indiscreet. Perhaps a spoonful of porridge. Thin, lukewarm. Made with water instead of milk. Milk is a luxury. Jam, if present, is applied so faintly it may as well be imaginary. Eggs, unlikely. Bacon, never. You are expected to eat modestly, to chew quietly, to never speak with your mouth full, even if that fullness is barely perceptible. You sip tea, weak, bitter, milkless, unless you're ill or very young. Sugar, only a pinch. Any more, and someone might raise an eyebrow. Or worse, say nothing, but think everything. You are not meant to ask for more. You are not meant to express hunger. If your stomach growls, you simply ignore it. A lady's appetite is a dangerous thing. An uncontrolled appetite suggests other things, cravings, indulgence, lack of discipline. And discipline is the foundation of virtue. There is no coffee, not in a proper household. That's a working man's drink. And besides, the caffeine might make you too alert, too awake, too alive. Across from you, your sister picks delicately at her food. Her eyes are dull. She is 17 and has already fainted twice this month. It's not from nerves, it's from anemia and corsets and the quiet starvation demanded by femininity. No one mentions it. Fainting is romantic after all. It makes her look fragile, desirable. If a man were present, she'd be praised for her delicacy. If a woman were to eat too heartily, she'd be marked as coarse. If she eats nothing, she's seen as refined. If she eats too much, she's condemned. Everything is performance. You finish your meal with half a slice of stale bread. No butter, no jam, just crumbs and silence and a mouth that longs for something real. But this is what's available to you, not just in food, but in life. Upstairs, in the nursery, the younger children may be eating gruel, thick and hot and clinging to the sides of tin bowls. The servants are probably having something more satisfying, porridge with milk perhaps. Bacon, if it's Sunday. A boiled egg. They need strength. You do not. You are not meant to lift things, not to labor, not to exert, and therefore you are not meant to eat for strength. Your food is symbolic. It exists to maintain the illusion of sustenance, not to provide it. After breakfast, you rinse your hands in a porcelain bowl filled with tepid water. No soap, just water and a towel. You pat your fingers dry, mindful not to chip a nail or fray the lace on your cuffs. You are now ready to begin the day's routine. Embroidery, piano practice, possibly a call from your governess. You may be asked to write thank you notes, or learn a new French phrase, or practice curtsying with a stack of books on your head, but your stomach is still half empty, and your soul perhaps just a little more so, and yet you will smile. You will press your lips into the perfect pink bow expected of you. You will act as though you are full, not just of food, but of contentment, of grace, of joy, because a Victorian lady is not meant to hunger, not for food, not for freedom, not for anything at all. The fire in your bedroom has finally been lit, but it's too late. The chill already lives in your bones. Your fingers are stiff. Your feet ache from standing barefoot on cold wood. And now, it's time to get dressed. But dressing, in the Victorian world, is not an act. It's a ceremony. There is no wardrobe full of choices. No walk-in closet, no cozy hoodie, no soft elastic waistband waiting to hug you like a secret. There is instead the structure, a carefully curated, brutally restrictive collection of garments that serve one purpose, only to shape you into the idea of a woman, not the reality of one. And that shaping starts from the inside out. You begin with your chemise, a long white linen shift. thin, colourless, and unflattering. Its only job is to act as a buffer between your skin and the scratchier, tighter layers to come. It's loose enough to move in, but don't get too comfortable. It's the only freedom your body will feel for the rest of the day. Next comes the corset. The corset. The great spine of Victorian womanhood. It's not the seductive, lacy number you've seen in modern fashion shows. No, it's stiff, boned with whalebone or steel, laced tightly by your maid or your sister, and designed to mold your torso into an idealized silhouette. The hourglass. The wasp waist. You hold the bedpost. You inhale. You brace. The laces tighten. Each tug crushes your ribs inward. Your lungs squeeze upward. Breathing becomes shallow. You can feel your organs shifting like embarrassed party guests, trying to make space in a room that's too small, too tight. And you may faint, too loose, and someone will notice. This is not about fashion, it's about control. And the tighter your waist, the more moral you are perceived to be. Your self-discipline is visible. Your compliance is measurable. Your waistline becomes your virtue. Over the corset comes the petticoat, or rather, petticoats plural. Several layers of heavy fabric, flounced and starched, worn to give your skirt volume. They are hot in summer. They are heavy in winter. They collect dust, trap heat, and make it nearly impossible to sit without calculating angles like a trained architect. Then the drawers. Long, open-crotched undergarments tied at the waist. Yes, open. For modesty. Because apparently it's more ladylike to wear garments that technically aren't closed than to risk the moral threat of visible seam. After that, the corset cover. A light blouse meant to keep the top layer of your corset from poking through your outer bodice. Because what's the point of being physically restrained if it shows? Then come the stockings. Tie-high, wool or cotton, tied with garters. Then the shoes buttoned, narrow, leather with no arch support and soles so thin you might as well be barefoot. But at least they're proper. At least they're ladylike. You're sweating, but you're not even halfway done. The dress. At last. You choose your gown for the day, not too ornate, not too plain, nothing too bright, nothing too loose. A lady must dress appropriately for her station, her schedule and the weather, while still appearing as though she has not thought about it at all. Today's dress is made of stiff fabric. The bodice fastens at the back. You need help. Your maid returns quietly, always quietly, to do up the buttons. 22 of them, each no larger than a pearl. She buttons in silence. You stare straight ahead. Once the bodice is secured, the skirt is arranged, pinned, smoothed, checked for length. Your ankles must not show, but the hem must not drag. You cannot step on it. You cannot trip. You cannot breathe heavily in public, or the corset may betray you. Accessories now. Gloves, a brooch, a hat secured with pins, if you're going out, a shawl, or a walking cloak, or perhaps a muff for your hands if it's winter. You are a fabric-covered ghost, floating, silent, elegant, and entirely caged. Your dressing table remains untouched. No rouge, no powder. Makeup is for actresses and sinners. You may pinch your cheeks discreetly before entering a room, or bite your lips lightly for colour, but do not let anyone catch you. Beauty must appear effortless, even when it takes an army. And now you're dressed. You're ready. Your day can begin. If, that is, you can still move. But your home, too, is a cage. Just a larger, colder one. You do not live in luxury. You live in a house that whispers rules through every wall. The parlour is for guests. You must never sit with your feet curled beneath you. You must never lean back too far. You must always appear engaged, but never too animated. Your voice must not carry beyond the room. The chairs are delicate. The upholstery floral, pale, and faintly itchy, is not meant to be truly used. The drawing room is for sewing, letter writing, for waiting, always waiting, for callers, for suitors. For the next hour, to pass with dignity, the kitchen is not yours. That is the servant's domain. You may observe, you may sample, but a lady does not cook. A lady requests, a lady receives. Your bedroom is private, but not truly. A maid enters at dawn. A sister might enter without knocking. Your movements are known, your habits noted. You do not own your solitude. There is no central heating. The fire warms only the room you're in. Elsewhere, the chill settles like a second skin. Windows frost over. Pipes groan. Rats in the walls scratch a lullaby that no one mentions. Your bed, with its carved wood and floral embroidery, is narrow and hard. The sheets smell faintly of starch and damp wool. Your pillow is lumpy. The mattress sags in the center like a grave dug too shallow. The privy is outside, or down the hall, or if you are lucky indoors but unheated. The porcelain is cold enough to make your bones seize. You must go quickly, quietly. No one discusses bodily needs. Ever. Your shelter is not soft. It is not warm. It is not comforting. It is beautiful. It is proper. It is a stage. And you are the actor. Your dress is a costume. Your corset, a prop. Your home, the set. Your smile, your silence, your stillness, they are the performance. But it is not one you chose. And it is not one you can leave. You may be wrapped in satin and lace, but make no mistake, your life is labor, just not the kind that earns wages. Victorian society doesn't consider you employed. You don't collect a paycheck. You don't clock in or clock out. But your time is not your own, and your energy is not idle. You work, constantly, relentlessly, invisibly. Because being a proper Victorian lady is exhausting. The day begins with accomplishments. You are expected to improve yourself, but only in acceptable, feminine ways. Piano, harp, embroidery, watercolors, French, etiquette, elocution. Not to get a job, not to survive, but to be pleasing, to be chosen, to be worth marrying. You sit at the piano, your back straight, your corset stiff, your fingers trembling from the pressure of being just good enough. Not a prodigy, that's unladylike, but not mediocre either. Mediocrity reflects poorly on your upbringing. You stitch tiny flowers onto linen napkins. You do not need the napkins. They will not be used. The work is decorative, symbolic. You sew to prove that you are delicate, patient, contained. You practice penmanship, delicate loops, perfect spacing. You write thank you notes to relatives you've never met, practicing charm through ink. Your fingers cramp, the ink smudges. You start again. You do not rest, because idleness in a woman is dangerous. A lady must always appear busy, but never too busy. Never sweaty, never hurried, never urgent. You must glide, you must float, you must accomplish everything with the appearance of effortlessness, even when your bones ache from the effort. The truth is, your day is full of invisible labor. You supervise the cook. Not directly, of course. That would be improper. But you're expected to know what's being prepared, when, and how many courses. You check the pantry. You note when the sugar is low. You ask, sweetly, if the cold room smells odd. You don't wash laundry, but you must examine it, monitor it. If a shirt comes back from the laundress with yellowing, it is your fault. If your husband's collars aren't stiff enough, you'll hear about it. If your children are stained or wrinkled, society will assume you are too. You do not raise your children directly if you are upper middle or upper class. They are in the nursery with a nursemaid. But their moral character, their posture, their handwriting, all reflect on you. You must oversee the overseeing. You must raise them without ever quite touching them. Afternoons bring more performance. If you are entertaining guests, the house must be spotless. You don't clean it, but you inspect, you adjust, you direct. Every out-of-place cushion, every crooked doily, every smudge on the silver is your silent responsibility. Your guests must never see the effort, just the result. You host tea. That sounds pleasant. It isn't. It is a test. Every gesture is weighed. How you pour, how you fold your hands, how you smile without revealing hunger. You're expected to keep the conversation light, pleasant, and clever, but never too clever. Wit is dangerous. Intelligence must be hidden behind a lace fan. If you are not entertaining, you are being displayed. You may take a walk with a chaperone. You may visit a friend if she is appropriate. You may go to church or a charity meeting or attend to floral arrangements. You must be seen, not as a person, as proof that your family is refined, stable, respectable. If you are poor, the labor is different, but no less punishing. You may still wear a corset. You may still be expected to keep clean, sweet-smelling, and modest, but you'll also be scrubbing floors, cooking, washing, stitching by candlelight to make ends meet. Working-class Victorian women often took in laundry, or mending, or they served in other households. They stood on aching feet all day, hands raw with lye and soap, lungs choked with soot, and still they were expected to smile, to be modest, to stay morally upright despite being crushed by the weight of other people's comfort. And if you're a governess, you are trapped in a limbo no one respects. You live in someone else's house, eat at their table, but you're not family. You're not a servant. You exist in the awkward margins of class, educated, overworked, underpaid. You raise other people's children, but you are always an outsider. You sleep alone. You cry alone. You worry what will become of you once your youth fades. Let's not forget marriage, the great goal, the prize, the burden. Once you're married, the labor does not end. It intensifies. You are now responsible for the entire household. Not physically, of course, but spiritually, emotionally, culturally. You must keep your husband's clothes in order, his meals prepared, his moods soothed. You must be a wife, a manager, a hostess, and later, a mother. And all the while, you must appear grateful, because you are lucky. Lucky to be supported. Lucky to be housed. Lucky not to have to work, they'll say. As though your life is leisure. As though your suffering is silk-lined. You may not choose your passions, your dreams. You may paint, but not professionally. Write, but not publish. Study, but not teach. You may have ideas, but not voice them. You may feel rage, but only in private. And if you dare to rebel, to speak too plainly, to question too loudly, you risk being labeled hysterical. Quote, "The ultimate punishment for a lady who refuses to perform? Diagnosis, silence, institutionalization, rest homes, asylums, sanatoriums." Victorian society had entire buildings ready to swallow women who broke under the weight of expectation, women who cried too much, who refused to eat, who spoke of ideas, who disobeyed husbands, who wanted something different. They were locked away and told they were ill. But often they were just exhausted, just human, and so you work. You polish the silver, you stitch the napkins, you press lavender into your drawers, you write cheerful notes, you smile for callers, you dip your head, you dim your flame. Because in Victorian England, survival is about performance, not about thriving, not about living fully, just about being exactly what everyone else needs you to be. Every hour, every day, forever. You're sitting quietly, hands folded in your lap, the weight of your corset gently stealing your breath. And yet the heaviest thing in the room is not your gown. It's the invisible presence of judgment, not from people, but from God. Because in Victorian England, religion isn't just belief. It's law, it's culture, it's daily surveillance from heaven itself. And for a lady, religion was not only a moral compass, it was a muzzle, a leash, and a mirror all at once. From the moment you were born, you were taught that piety is the highest form of femininity. Not intelligence, not creativity, not ambition, piety. A woman who feared God, served quietly, and obeyed her earthly husband was considered pure. Your soul, much like your linen drawers, was expected to be white, spotless, and pressed smooth of all wrinkles. You were told that to be good was to be silent, that humility was divine, that questioning was a dangerous temptation whispered by the devil. You were encouraged to read scripture, but only certain parts, the obedient parts, the ones that remind you to honor thy father and thy husband in that order. You were warned against pride, vanity, and too much laughter. Because joy could be mistaken for arrogance, because self-expression could lead to sin. The Bible was your instruction manual, but it came with many footnotes, mostly written by men. You attended church every Sunday, often twice. You wore your best hat, your stiffest gloves. You sat still through long sermons in cold pews, listening to ministers discuss Eve's temptation, women's weakness, and the virtue of suffering. You were expected to nod, to reflect, to confess. There were no female priests, no women behind the pulpit. Your role was to receive, to submit, to be saved, preferably without raising your voice. Morning prayers were a part of your routine. So were evening devotions. You read from little leather-bound books with gold-gilded pages. You closed your eyes. You folded your hands. You asked forgiveness for your thoughts, for your questions, for your humanity. And then there were the superstitions, because religion didn't stop at the church door. It crept into your bedroom, your nursery, your kitchen drawers. You slept with a Bible beneath your pillow to protect you from impure dreams. You covered mirrors at night, lest they reflect your soul while you slept. You avoided walking under ladders. You feared black cats. You worried about deathbeds and final confessions. Illness wasn't always just illness. A lingering cough might be punishment for pride, a miscarriage, a trial of faith. Depression? That wasn't a word yet. That was melancholy, a spiritual failing, a sign you were too self-indulgent, too selfish. You were told to pray it away. Misfortune was your fault, somehow, or your mother's, or your neighbor's. The devil moved in whispers, and women were always his easiest targets. And if you were unmarried past 30, people whispered, not just about your personality, but your soul. Perhaps God had closed your womb for a reason. Perhaps you had failed in some divine duty. Spinsterhood wasn't just social failure, it was spiritual ambiguity. An unmarried woman without purpose was suspicious, unnatural, possibly dangerous. Superstition lived in your kitchen too. You were told not to bake bread on Good Friday, it might fail to rise. You never turned a loaf upside down once it cooled. Salt spilled was bad luck, unless you threw a pinch over your left shoulder, back toward the devil. A knife dropped on the floor meant a man would visit. A spoon, a woman, a fork, bad luck all around. You'd hang a horseshoe above the door, not for decoration, for protection. And in childbirth, it was not just physical agony, it was spiritual vulnerability. Women were believed to be closer to death and closer to the devil during labor than at any other time in life. Prayers were whispered, holy water sprinkled, crosses clutched. because death hovered near, and many women didn't survive. Stillbirth was seen as a judgment, infertility, a curse. If you gave birth to a sickly child, some whispered that you had sinned, or that a witch had cursed your cradle. So too were you blamed for the spiritual fate of your children. It was your job to raise them not just to behave, but to be good Christians. If they swore, if they lied, if they skipped church, it reflected on you. You were their moral chaperone. But you were always being chaperoned too. Every neighbor, every aunt, every pastor was watching for signs of your backsliding. You must never be seen reading secular novels on Sundays, never miss morning service, never laugh too loud. You must never appear frivolous. Even if your heart ached to be frivolous for just one afternoon, there were even rules about death, how to mourn, how long, what color to wear, how many months until you could be seen in lilac instead of black. Mourning was another performance, a sign of piety, of devotion, of proper emotional management. Widows had to mourn at least 2 years, some forever. But don't weep too hard. That could be seen as doubting God's plan. It was a tightrope walk, every day, every hour. A balance between public piety and private exhaustion, between genuine faith and constant fear of doing it wrong. And if you did fail, there were always institutions, convents, asylums, rest homes, designed not to heal, but to quiet, to remove you from view, to protect society from your grief, your voice, your independence, your trauma. Faith was never just a personal matter. It was social hygiene. And yet some women did believe, fiercely, quietly. They found comfort in scripture, hope in hymns, solace in stained glass. Not all were crushed. Some found God in the small joys, a robin on the windowsill, a child's hand in theirs, the soft hush of candlelight at evening prayers. But belief was never yours alone. It belonged to everyone around you. It shaped your behavior, your clothing, your marriage, your motherhood. In the Victorian world, your soul had a dress code. Your morality had posture. Your faith had to be beautiful, quiet, controlled, and feminine. Because in the end, your spiritual health was judged not by God, but by society. And society never missed a Sunday. It's midday now, and the soft chime of the clock reminds you that luncheon is approaching. But don't let the word lunch fool you. This isn't a break. It's not comfort. It's not freedom. It's another performance, just like everything else. You descend the stairs carefully, hand trailing the banister. Your skirt swishes behind you like a shadow with opinions. You've been stitched into this dress for hours now, and your corset has begun to whisper to your lungs, reminding them that full breaths are a luxury for the unladylike. The dining room is set. White linen, folded napkins, polished silver. No one is rushing. No one is slouching. And no one is actually looking forward to this. You sit. Again, posture is everything. Spine straight, chin slightly lowered. You place your hands in your lap, fingers relaxed but not too relaxed. You do not lean on the table. You do not fidget. You do not yawn, sigh, or scratch. All appetites must be hidden, even hunger. The food arrives, carefully portioned, visually pleasing, morally inoffensive. There is soup, thin, lukewarm, faintly scented with onion or turnip. You must not slurp. You must not let the spoon touch your teeth. You eat slowly, as though each bite is a sentence in a letter you are afraid to finish. Then a small portion of cold meat, mutton perhaps, dry, greyish, trimmed of fat. Fat is unladylike. Fat is dangerous. Boiled carrots, overcooked peas, a slice of bread, not too fresh. You chew carefully, not for flavour, but for decorum. You must not seem eager. You must not finish before anyone else. but you also mustn't dawdle. You must read the room and eat with precisely the same energy as everyone around you, restrained, muted, and vaguely uncomfortable. There is always tea, hot, bitter, occasionally sweetened with a whisper of sugar if you're feeling rebellious. You do not add milk unless someone else does it first, and you always sip without slurping. Dessert? Sometimes. A fruit compote, a small, sad custard, never cake, unless it's a holiday. And even then, you take the smallest slice. If it's too delicious, you must pretend not to notice. You are not here to eat. You are here to be watched, judged, compared, and remembered, ideally as graceful. After luncheon comes conversation. This too is part of the meal. You discuss appropriate topics, the weather, a new bonnet, a distant cousin's engagement. You must never discuss money, illness, politics, or anything that might imply that the world is less than perfect. Your voice must be soft, your laughter gentle, your opinions agreeable, and above all, you must never dominate the conversation. To do so would suggest ambition, and ambition in a woman is like whiskey in a teacup, startling, out of place, and likely to be poured down the drain. If you are with family, the tension is quieter, but if there are guests, especially male guests, the scrutiny multiplies. Every bite, every blink, every word becomes a test. Will you pass? Will you be remembered for your poise, or for the way your fork trembled when you picked at your potato? You excuse yourself after the meal, not with a sigh or a yawn, but with a faint smile and a whispered remark about fresh air or embroidery. And now, if it is a special day, there may be entertainment, a musicale, a parlor game, or the most dangerous of all, an outing. Outings are a battlefield of etiquette. You must dress precisely. You must speak just enough. You must appear intelligent, but not intellectual. Entertaining, but not loud. Elegant, but not vain. Perhaps you are attending the theatre. That sounds glamorous, but it is another minefield. You must arrive precisely on time. You must not gawk. You must pretend you are familiar with the play, even if you are not. And if the actress on stage performs with too much flair, you are required to silently disapprove. Women who take up space are meant to be scorned, even if a part of you quietly admires her freedom. Perhaps it is a public promenade, the park, the high street. You walk with your parasol, your gloves, your smile. You are not there to enjoy yourself. You are there to be seen. Your walk is calculated, your posture perfect, your expression polite. You do not run, you do not shout, you do not slump, even when your shoes begin to blister and your back screams for mercy. Your corset does not care that you haven't drawn a full breath since breakfast. Men tip their hats, women nod. Everyone pretends not to notice everyone else, while meticulously cataloguing every stitch of lace and every whisper of scandal. Later, perhaps, you attend a tea party. This is not fun. This is war. With teaspoons and polite smiles, you are introduced. You curtsy. You sip. You nod. You make small talk. You compliment someone's brooch. You pretend to admire a child's poem. You feign enthusiasm for embroidery. All of it is a mask. A quiet, unspoken competition for status, marriage, reputation, survival. But there is laughter. There is music. There are moments when your eyes meet another woman's across the room, and for one breathless second, you both drop the performance. You see her, she sees you, and you both know. This is exhausting, but we are enduring it, together, silently. Night falls. The streets dim. The oil lamps flicker. Entertainment now might mean a family reading by the hearth, a game of cards, a sonata on the piano. You smile. You listen. You wait. Your stomach still feels half empty. Your soul more so. You aren't starving, not exactly, but you are always hungry. Hungry for more space, more breath, more truth, more life. But in Victorian society, a lady must never admit to hunger. So you smile, and you sip your tea, and you swallow it all. The night is quiet now, too quiet, and in that silence, you notice it, the faint tickle in your throat, the chill at the base of your spine, the heaviness in your limbs. You feel off, but you say nothing, because in the Victorian world, admitting illness, especially as a woman, is complicated. It can mean sympathy, it can mean shame, it can mean being ignored entirely. You press a handkerchief to your lips, it comes away clean, no blood, not yet. You tell yourself it's nothing, it has to be nothing, but deep down, you know what everyone in this era knows. Illness is always waiting, and for a Victorian lady, death is never far. It walks beside you, quiet, polite, and very well dressed. Let's start with the basics. You are surrounded by disease. It's in the air, in the water, on the sheets, in the street. Tuberculosis, typhoid, cholera, diphtheria, measles, scarlet fever, influenza, rheumatic fever, consumption, and of course, the ever-present diagnosis that haunts women's lives more than any germ: hysteria. You live in a house with no insulation. The windows rattle, the damp creeps in and settles like a tenant who doesn't pay rent. You sleep in a cold room. You wash in cold water. You step into the fog, breathing in coal smoke, horse droppings, and the breath of 100 coughing strangers. And if you get sick, your options are bleak. The family doctor arrives. He wears a dark suit, a waistcoat, and a calm expression that feels rehearsed. He opens a black leather bag filled with instruments that look more suited to carpentry than healing. He smells of tobacco and soap and quiet dread. He examines you with tools, with questions, with judgment. Your pulse is too quick. It's your nerves. Your appetite is poor. It's womanly melancholy. You feel faint. Hysteria. The cure? Bed rest. Bleeding. Laudanum. Cod liver oil. A mustard plaster. A purgative that might kill the worms they assume live inside you. You're prescribed tonics that taste like punishment and pills made from mercury, opium, or chalk. Modern science has not arrived yet. Germ theory is still controversial. Hand washing is considered optional. Doctors may not sterilize their tools between patients. They might touch your wrist, then your mouth, then their pipe. And they wonder why fevers spread like gossip. If you're bleeding too much, whether from childbirth, miscarriage, or some unknowable horror, they might apply leeches, or a tourniquet, or just pray. Women die often, quietly, politely, in their own beds, in locked wards, in bloodied linens that are boiled and reused. But death isn't loud. Not here. It comes in whispers, in lingering coughs, in pale cheeks and distant eyes, in hair that thins and hands that tremble. They call it consumption, as if the disease is simply nibbling at your soul, politely, bit by bit. You watch your friends disappear this way. Cousins, aunts, sisters. Sometimes it's sudden, a fever, a collapse, and gone within the week. Other times it stretches for months, years, and all the while society whispers that illness in women is poetic, romantic, that a fading woman is a beautiful one, delicate, spiritual, close to God. They write poems about girls who cough blood onto lace handkerchiefs and then die beautifully before their 25th birthday. No one writes poems about the bed sores, the choking, the stink of infection, the madness that comes when the pain lasts too long. And then there's childbirth. You've heard the stories. You've seen the aftermath. You've read the solemn obituary columns that say she passed peacefully 3 days after delivering a healthy son. They never mention the blood loss, the fever, the hands clenched into sheets, the midwife whispering prayers while boiling water in the next room. Victorian medicine calls it puerperal fever. It is caused by unwashed hands, but no one wants to talk about that. Instead, they say it's God's will, the price of womanhood, the sacred burden of motherhood. You learn early that your womb is both a gift and a weapon. That menstruation is a curse, pregnancy a risk, and menopause the end of your usefulness. At every stage, your body is suspect. Even your emotions are medicalized. If you cry too much, hysteria. If you're angry, hysteria. If you want to study something too deeply, your womb might migrate to your brain. That's not a joke. That's the actual belief. They say that education can make women sterile. That too much reading will dry up your reproductive system. That passion is a threat to your health. And if you refuse to comply, they can commit you easily. Rest homes, convalescent facilities, asylum. For a woman, institutionalization is always just a few conversations away. All it takes is a husband, a father, a brother saying she's not herself, that she's erratic, that she talks too much, that she doesn't smile like she used to. Once inside, treatment is rarely kind. You may be given electroshock therapy, ice baths, restraints, or endless doses of morphine to quiet the part of you that still wants to live loudly. The asylums are full of women who broke the rules, some gently, some violently, some not at all. Some were simply inconvenient. And so they disappeared behind iron gates and thick curtains, where no one has to see the cost of silencing a soul. And yet for all this, you keep going. You sip the bitter tonics. You take the pills. You pray the pain away. You try not to sneeze in public. You hide the cough. You downplay the headache. Because to be visibly unwell is to invite judgment, and to be a woman is already to be one misstep away from disgrace. You are told to bear it well, to offer it up, to remember your blessings. But deep inside, you know the truth. Victorian womanhood is a slow illness. It drains, it limits, it punishes, and it does not forgive. So you fold your hands, you smile, you rest when you can, and you whisper to yourself the most blasphemous prayer of all. Please let me survive this life I didn't choose. It's evening now. The gas lamps are lit. The curtains are drawn. The streets outside are dim and wet. And inside your home, the fire crackles with just enough warmth to suggest comfort without ever quite achieving it. And you sit quietly in the drawing room, hands folded, listening to the sounds of your family moving around you. Conversations, soft laughter, the clink of porcelain. Familiar, predictable. And yet, you feel like a guest in your own life. Because in Victorian England, family is everything. But for a woman, family is also a trap. From the moment you're born, you are told that you are not your own. You are your father's daughter, your brother's sister, your husband's future wife, your children's mother. You are never simply you. Your girlhood is brief. And even that is carefully supervised. As a child, your days are structured. You are taught to sit still, to speak softly, to curtsy on command. You are watched constantly, not just by parents, but by governesses, nurses, aunts, and society itself. Every giggle, every scuff on your shoe, every stray curl out of place is noted and corrected. There is no such thing as tomboyish charm. Curiosity is gently discouraged. Climbing trees is for boys. Loud games are frowned upon. And if you bruise your knees or tear your dress, someone will sigh and say, "Who will marry her now?" You are taught to be pretty, but not vain. Smart, but not clever. Kind, but never assertive. The goal of your entire girlhood is not education, not adventure, not discovery. It is preparation. Preparation for marriage, preparation for motherhood, preparation for a life that is never, ever your own. Your adolescence is a slow rehearsal for domesticity. You are trained to keep a home before you even own one. You practice setting tables. You learn to mend linen even if your fingers bleed. You memorize recipes, arrange flowers, press sheets, and master the art of folding towels with both precision and grace. You are praised when you serve, corrected when you speak out of turn, and if you ever question the system, you're told, "This is how it's always been." Eventually, you marry, perhaps for love, more likely for status, or money, or convenience. Maybe your husband is kind, maybe he isn't. Either way, he owns everything, including you. Under the law, you lose your identity the moment you say, "I do." You become his property. Your money, his. Your possessions, his. Your body, also his. Legally, there is no such thing as marital rape. Consent is not required within marriage, because a wife is not seen as having agency. She is a duty, a vessel, a means to an end, and that end is children. You are expected to bear them, as many as possible, as often as possible, even if it kills you. There is no reliable birth control, no safe abortion, no privacy. You are told that motherhood is sacred, that it is woman's highest calling, that it will fulfill you, and sometimes it does, but often it doesn't, and you are not allowed to say so. Pregnancy is constant. Labor is dangerous. Childbirth is a roll of the dice between life and death. And yet you are expected to face it with a smile and a hymnal. And when the baby arrives, your work has just begun. If you are wealthy, a nursemaid may help. If not, you are alone. You feed, you wash, you rock, you cry quietly in the night so no one sees the cracks. Your body is no longer yours. Your sleep is no longer yours. Your name is no longer even your own. You become mother, a title with no off switch. And the children, they are beautiful, frightening, fragile. Your daughters are taught to become you. Your sons are taught to rule you. And you must smile through all of it. You dress them in perfect white. You brush their hair until the curls gleam. You teach them prayers and manners. And never, ever tell them the truth, that this world does not love them, that it simply molds them. If they fall ill, you watch them fade, powerless. Medicine fails more often than it helps. Fevers steal children in the night. Coughs linger for weeks, and then suddenly stop along with the heartbeat. And when they die, as so many do, you are expected to mourn with dignity. Not too loudly, not too long. Your grief must be elegant, because even in sorrow, a woman must behave. If your husband dies, you become a widow, a creature of strange status, feared, pitied, sometimes even envied. Widows have more freedom, but at a price. You must wear black, for a year at least, sometimes 2, sometimes forever. You may not attend dances. You may not laugh in public. You may not remarry too soon or too late. You walk a line between suspicion and sympathy, and through it all, through marriage, through childbirth, through widowhood, you remain the heart of the home, the one who smooths the napkin, the one who keeps the children quiet, the one who knows who likes jam on their toast and who hates mustard in their sandwiches. You are expected to make everything beautiful, and to do so invisibly. Your labor is not recorded. Your suffering is not remembered. Your victories are domestic, and therefore considered trivial. And if you fail, if the house is dusty, or the baby cries too loud, or your husband is in a mood, then you have failed as a woman. Because in the Victorian world, family life is not a partnership. It is a hierarchy, and you You are the soft scaffolding that holds it all up. But scaffolding is not the centerpiece. It is not celebrated. It is merely expected. The sun has passed its highest point. Afternoon has arrived. But don't expect relaxation. For a Victorian lady, the later hours of the day bring more than embroidery and polite conversation. They bring conflict, not always loud, not always violent, but constant, layered, and coded in ways only other women know how to read. Let's start inside your home. The staff are restless. The kitchen is hot. The youngest maid forgot to polish the brass again, and your mother is fuming quietly behind her teacup. No one raises their voice. That's not how power works here. Power is exercised in glances, in silence, in the way someone doesn't speak to you. You're expected to manage these tensions. As a lady, you don't clean, but you control. You don't scold the help, not directly, but if the teapot is chipped or the bread slightly burnt, it reflects on you, not the cook, not the butler. You. So you whisper. You write small notes. You make careful suggestions. And you absorb the guilt when they aren't followed. And then there's the social battlefield outside your walls. You step out for an afternoon call, a short visit to a nearby home. Calling cards in hand, gloves neatly buttoned, parasol at the perfect angle. You are not here for company. You are here to navigate the war zone of reputation. You greet the hostess with a smile. You sit carefully, quietly. The room smells of roses and mild resentment. The conversation begins, light as chiffon. Have you heard from the Danforths? Did you attend the musicale? What lovely lace on your cuffs, French. But beneath these words are landmines. When someone says, "How brave of you to wear yellow," they mean, "It makes your skin look ill." When they say, "How charmingly independent your younger sister is," they mean, "She's dangerously forward." And when they say, "You must be so busy these days," they are telling you you've been neglecting your social duties. You smile, you nod, you sip tea that has gone tepid from the weight of the unsaid. These women are not your enemies. Not exactly. They are trapped like you. They just have sharper claws. You endure these visits, you make your rounds, you perform civility, and all the while your mind races. Did you curtsy too deeply? Not deeply enough? Was your hat fashionable or foolish? Did they notice the worn edge on your glove? At any moment, a misstep can become a scandal, because in this world, you are not judged by your actions, but by appearances. A conversation too long with a married man, a glance across a ballroom, a slightly raised voice, and suddenly, your name is whispered over lace fans in drawing rooms you'll never be invited to again. You live in fear of ruin. But ruin doesn't always come in dramatic form. It can be a rumor, a misunderstanding, a smile held too long. Worse still, there are things you cannot defend yourself against. Your class, your family name, your accent, the size of your dowry. If you're poor, you are tolerated so long as you behave. If you're rich but unrefined, you are mocked behind your back. If you're widowed, you're watched constantly for signs of either desperation or indecency. And if you are too clever, too passionate, too ambitious, you are dangerous. Some women disappear from society entirely. They move away. They take ill. They marry downward. They are committed. And no one says their name again. Justice for women is not written in law. It is written in whispers. Even formal punishment, when it arrives, is often designed to contain women. If you steal because you are poor, because you are hungry, you are labeled a fallen woman. You may be sent to the workhouse, or prison, or transported. If you are too outspoken, too strange, or simply too inconvenient, your family may send you to a rest cure facility, the polite term for a soft prison. There, you will be treated for nervous exhaustion, which means silence, isolation, denial of agency, and enforced stillness. You are forbidden from reading, from writing, from speaking, unless spoken to. This is not healing. This is erasure. Some women do fight back, quietly, carefully. They write novels under male pseudonyms. They found charities. They start small revolutions in parlors and drawing rooms. But it is always risky, always exhausting, always watched. Even your closest friendships can be strained. You and your sister may compete for the same suitor. You and your cousin may pretend not to compare gowns or hair or futures. You may smile at a friend while wondering if she is secretly glad that your last dinner party was a failure. The social hierarchy is built like a ladder, with women stacked atop one another, clawing upward with gloved fingers, always trying to climb but never quite escape. And then there's the violence no one speaks of. The husband who drinks too much, the father whose anger leaves bruises, the uncle who stares too long. If you speak of it, you are shamed, disbelieved, told you are hysterical. If you remain silent, you are praised for your composure. Either way, you carry it alone. Because Victorian society doesn't protect women, it protects appearances. It doesn't reward honesty, it rewards obedience. So you smile through the afternoon, you make small talk, you host dinner, serve wine, laugh at things that aren't funny. And when the door finally closes, when the guests leave, when the lamps are dimmed, you retreat to your room. You exhale slowly, quietly, so your corset doesn't creak. And you ask yourself, how many masks did I wear today? Because here, in this world, every smile is a negotiation, every silence is survival, and every woman, no matter how powdered or perfumed, is always calculating her next move. The sun has set. The sky outside is ink black and humming with cold. You can hear the occasional rattle of a carriage on cobblestone, the clop of hooves fading into the fog, the distant bark of a dog that no one really owns. You're still dressed, still laced, still perfectly composed, but inside you are unraveling, because night is when the Victorian world truly begins to rot. In the light of day, society is strict but legible. You know your lines. You know the cues. But when darkness falls, when the gas lamps flicker, and the maids move through the house with lowered eyes, everything starts to blur. Your home, so rigid in daylight, feels strange now. The rooms are too quiet. The staircases too steep. The walls too thin. You move through the space with a candle in hand, the flame casting long, nervous shadows across your skirts. The mirrors are covered because no one wants to catch their reflection at midnight. That would feel wrong. There is no electricity. The heat from the fire doesn't reach the corners of your bedroom. The chill creeps in like a secret. The windows sweat with condensation. Somewhere under your bed, you know, is a chamber pot and a sliver of porcelain sanity. You are not supposed to be afraid, but you are, because Victorian night is not peaceful, it's fragile. Let's start with something simple. Fire. Your entire home is flammable. The drapes, the bedclothes, the floors, the gas lines, all of it could catch with one dropped match, one untended hearth, one careless flicker. Every woman knows someone who died in a house fire. You sleep with your bedroom door cracked just enough to hear the creak of a floorboard, just enough to smell the smoke, if it comes. And if it comes, there is no fire brigade like we know today. There is no alarm system. You scream, you run, you hope the neighbors are awake. You try to decide what to save. The silver locket, or your youngest child. You hear noises in the night, not dramatic ones, just movements. The groan of old wood, the rustle of mice in the walls, the scurry of cockroaches along the baseboards. You lie very still, pretending they are not there. Pretending your house is clean and safe and proper. You hope it's just mice, because crime, too, hides in the darkness. Men linger in alleyways. Desperate men. Angry men. Men who see you as something to own, or take, or punish. The police are few. Their power is limited. If someone breaks into your home, you may never know his name. And if you're attacked, God forbid, outside your home, in the dark, you will be questioned. Not him. What were you doing alone? What were you wearing? Why didn't you scream? Victorian society has endless sympathy for women in stories, but very little for women in real life. If you survive violence, you are changed, damaged, suspect. If you die from it, you might become a tragic poem, or a sermon, or a cautionary tale, but not justice. And then there are the fears that creep in quietly. The illnesses of the night. Fevers always rise after sunset. Children cough more violently. Bleeding begins at dusk. Mothers sit awake all night, holding damp cloths to foreheads, whispering prayers into the cracks of the ceiling, wondering if dawn will arrive before death. And you, if you are not ill, are still tired. But you cannot rest, because sleep is not safe. Your corset is finally removed. You breathe sharply at first, then too deeply. You feel lightheaded, unstable, as though your bones don't know how to hold you up anymore. You slip into a nightdress, high-necked, long-sleeved. Even in sleep, you must be modest. Your bed is cold. Your sheets are stiff. The mattress dips in the middle. You feel every spring, every splinter in the wooden slats beneath. There are no weighted blankets, no white noise machines, just the distant tick of a mantel clock and the knowledge that you are alone and your thoughts are not kind. What if the maid forgets to close the flue and the smoke creeps in? What if you forgot to blow out your candle? What if your husband comes home drunk? What if you wake and someone is standing at the foot of your bed? The silence becomes unbearable. You hear your own heartbeat. You hear your breath, shaky and shallow. And sometimes, when the night stretches too long, your thoughts go darker. You wonder how many women are lying in beds just like yours, staring at the same ceiling, whispering the same secrets to no one. You wonder how many have gone mad from this. And the answer is too many. The night is when women weep, alone, into pillows, into prayer books, into nothing, because no one can see you cry after dark. No one can judge the shaking of your hands when there's no one to serve tea to, but you still feel the weight of what could happen. What if you wake to a telegram announcing death? What if your child goes cold in the crib? What if your name, your precious, carefully preserved name, is spoken in a scandalous tone in someone else's home? What if tomorrow is the day it all finally breaks? What if no one remembers you when you're gone? And what if, just what if, you don't actually want to wake up at all? That thought comes quietly, but it always comes, and you push it away, because even in despair, you are still a Victorian lady, and your grief must be quiet. Your madness must be neat. Your fear must be graceful. You close your eyes. You try to sleep. You try not to dream of fires or funerals or footsteps. You lie in the dark, pretending not to hear the sounds of the world falling apart, because death in the Victorian world is not sudden. It is slow and soft and sewn into every seam of your pillowcase. And tomorrow you will wake again. Pull the curtains, lace the corset, smile at breakfast, and carry the weight of it all, quietly. You made it through. Somehow, you walked the tightrope. You kept your gloves clean. You smiled at the right times. You didn't say too much. You didn't eat too much. You didn't hope too much. And now, you're back where you began, alone in your room. Breath slow, hands sore from embroidery, or clenching, or both. The fire has burned down to embers. The window pane is frosted over. The candle at your bedside guttered out an hour ago. You lie still, listening to the house settle floorboards creaking, distant footsteps, the occasional cough echoing through the walls. This house is not a home, it is a stage. Every room a scene, every day a script, every silence a line you weren't allowed to speak. Tonight, you undressed in silence. Your corset hung limp over the back of a chair, still shaped like you, or rather, shaped like the woman you were forced to be. Your body aches in strange, quiet ways. Your ribs feel tender. Your spine hums with tension. But your pain is private. It always is. And now that the day is done, you are left with only one question. Who are you when no one is watching? Are you the graceful daughter, the perfect wife, the obedient mother, the well-mannered guest? Or are you something else? Something more? Something buried in the dark, without anyone watching? You allow your mind to wander. You remember the girls you saw in the street today. One with hair down, unruly, laughing, running, her skirt lifted past her ankles. No gloves, no escort, just freedom. It shocked you, but also it stirred something. You remember the books hidden in the back of your wardrobe, the ones with ideas too large for your drawing room, the ones that made your heart race not from impropriety, but from the first taste of self. You remember how you wanted to speak at dinner, just once, to say what you really thought, to challenge the idea that your worth was stitched into your hemline, but you didn't. Because good women don't interrupt. Good women don't disagree. Good women endure. And you are a good woman, aren't you? You pull the covers up to your chin. The blanket is heavy, but not warm. Outside, the wind stirs the branches of the trees. Somewhere, a baby cries, and then quiets. Somewhere, a servant sneaks bread from the kitchen and tiptoes back to her attic room. Somewhere, a man writes poetry he'll never show his wife. Somewhere, a woman sharpens her silence into steel. You are not alone in your exhaustion. There are thousands of women, just like you, breathing quietly into the void. Some are dreaming, some are crying, some are already gone. And yet the world continues. Tea is poured, gloves are buttoned, eyes are lowered, because the Victorian machine cannot run without its women. Not women as people, but women as symbols, as decoration, as pillars of morality built on silence, duty, and sacrifice. And that is what you have been trained to be. Not a human being, but a role, an idea, a beautifully framed portrait with no sound behind the glass. And yet beneath all that lace and expectation, something still beat, a thought, a feeling, a spark, something that refuses to be crushed. Because even in this life, this heavy, corseted life, you have dreams. You have moments, brief flashes of rebellion, private smiles, hidden thoughts, secret questions. You may never say them aloud, but they exist, and that matters. You are not nothing. You are not just wife, or daughter, or Mrs. So-and-so. You are you, a woman in a time that does not allow you to be one. Not fully, not freely, but you survived this day. And that's something. So tonight, as you lie still beneath scratchy blankets, heart beating slowly in the dark, remember this. You endured what was never meant to be bearable. You played the part. You kept the peace. You made beauty out of discomfort. You held your world together with grace that was never reciprocated. You were not weak. You were just tired. And now you rest. You close your eyes and let the world fade. The corset no longer pinches. The mirrors are all covered. The whispers stop. No one is watching. And for the first time all day, you are allowed to breathe like a person, not a performance. So tonight, As you drift off, remember, you don't have to wake up in Victorian England. You are safe, you are free, and you are allowed to sleep. Sleep well.